Alright, so check this out. At best friend's funeral, me and two others saw her breathing deeply for 20 seconds. So, we were viewing her body at her wake. We were her three besties and the last ones in line. One of the girls was stroking her hair and saying how peaceful she looked. She looked like she was sleeping. And suddenly, we see her embalmed body that had been dead for a week start to take deep, slow, meditative breaths. We were in shock at first, staring at this glitch or phenomenon. After about 20 seconds, we all looked at each other with this look of, did we all just witness that? At that moment, the usher's presence broke the spell and she was inanimate again. We confirmed what had happened while outside smoking. We all saw her breathe in and out for about 10 or 20 seconds. We never spoke of it again for some odd reason, and this was 22 years ago, and I'm the only one that's still alive out of the three of us. I believe the deceased was showing us that death is absolutely not the end. Sarah, Roslyn, and Autumn will all be together sooner than later, I'm sure. Several years ago, my car changed colors. I just stumbled across this subreddit, so I thought I'd share one of the, quite frankly, many odd and unexplainable experiences that I've had over my lifetime. This would have happened in 2018. Honestly, isn't it odd that so many people have stories from this exact time frame? Perusing the sub, I noticed that year seems to be prominent. Anyway, I had this car, a blue 2001 Volkswagen Jetta TDI. It's the car that I learned how to drive on. It honestly didn't get much use by this time period and kinda just sat there, but I knew that car like the back of my hand. Even though I didn't drive it often anymore, my friends and I would often use it as a sort of hangout spot, as I lived in a small trailer at the time with my parents and two siblings. There wasn't much privacy in that place. And this wasn't like once or twice. We'd hang out in that car all the time, pretty much nightly, as I was always with friends getting up to some sort of trouble at this point in my life. We'd hung out in the car as recently as the night before. In fact, I remember this quite well. That's why it was bizarre the next morning when, upon glancing outside of the window of my then home, I noticed that the car wasn't blue, but green. I took the shortest, most innocuous glance at the thing and I had to do a double take. In that moment, I experienced the most surreal feeling. Something akin to deja vu, but with increased intensity, followed by this wave of fear, like adrenaline almost. Like I just witnessed something dire or terrifying. I can't really explain my reaction now, but my stomach just dropped for a moment. I called all of my friends over to look at the car, and they'd remarked how they could have sworn that it was blue as well. One of them, without even prompting me to do so. I hadn't yet told them what was wrong when I said we were going to check on my car. This is something that's bothered not just me, but everyone else that I used to hang out with in that car for a long time now. We even did some digging, and unfortunately, I found that in all the previous photos of the vehicle, it never appeared to be blue. It was always green. There is one discrepancy though, and that's the title. The title says that the car is blue. This entire experience was disturbing in a very odd way. From the emotions that it invoked to, well, the questions that I still have now, years later, about how something like this even happens. I have a lot more stories to share from this exact time period as well, and I can't wait to share them all with you as a member here. Lost item reappears because it had no other choice. This started a few nights ago. I had some hand sanitizer spray, and I went to grab it out of my sling, which is inside my backpack that was on the couch. I use it and I go to bed. The next day, the sanitizer is missing. I'm annoyed at this because I specifically bought this hand sanitizer because the bottle is refillable. It's one of those flat bottles that stores nicely, and I didn't want to have to buy another one. I tore apart my bag, the backpack, and there's no trace of it. There's nothing on my couch. My house is tidy, but the sanitizer is nowhere. I mean, I'm going between the cushions, and I cannot for the life of me find it. Eventually, I just give up. I decide to restart the search today. I search my backpack, my sling, everywhere. Did I just somehow miss it? I don't know, I guess not. Once again, there isn't a trace. Then, I remember I have a Wi-Fi camera so that I can watch my pets when we're out, and it's pointed right at the couch. I decide to go and see if I can find myself spraying the hand sanitizer. After scrubbing through the video, I finally find the clip and see myself put the sanitizer into my backpack. I go check again to prove to my girlfriend that it's inexplicably disappeared, and there it is, clear as day inside the backpack when I finish. Now, I am absolutely certain that it wasn't in there. It's in the main compartment, and there was nothing else in the compartment except the hand sanitizer. It would have been downright impossible to miss. I feel like I tricked the universe into giving it back, but I'm also a little freaked out. This is your friendly reminder that I am not an AI voice. Just a guy that's been told he's had a decent speaking voice for most of his adult life, and this is how I choose to share it. I hope you click subscribe or follow if you're cool with that. Hearing outcomes minutes before they happen. This had happened twice in my life now, and I cannot for the life of me explain it. I was sitting on my couch watching a Sunday night football game. The game was heading into the fourth quarter, and the home team was up by 14 points. During the commercial break on ESPN, Scott Van Pelt appeared behind his announcer desk and said, "And when we return, we'll talk with Rodgers on his winning drive and 17-point comeback." I heard this clearly. I watched him say it. I thought to myself, why would SVP say he's going to interview Rodgers if the game isn't over? Better yet, why is he assuming that they're going to win? I quickly texted my friends, who were also watching the game, and asked if they also thought it was weird that SVP announced that the Packers were going to win when the game wasn't over. Their replies were a combination of, LOL? What? And what do you mean? The fourth quarter comes, and Packers end up scoring 2 touchdowns and kicking a field goal to win. SVP interviewed Rodgers after the game, just like he said during the commercial break. I couldn't revisit this with my friends given they had no idea what I was talking about initially. I brought it up to my wife later that night, and she couldn't wrap her head around what I was trying to explain. I still can't find an explanation for what happened. It's like I witnessed the moment before it occurred and was told the outcome. This has happened again recently during an NBA playoff game, but this time it included the final score. It happens so randomly. I compare it to deja vu, but I'm fully awake. Has anyone had any similar experiences? Mom asked me to open the door, but it wasn't her. I was about to take a quick nap on my sofa. I wasn't tired, I just had nothing to do, when someone buzzed my intercom twice. I ignored it, but since this person insisted and buzzed again, I figured it might be my mom. She had forgotten her keys that day, so I assumed it was her coming back from work. When I asked who the person was, they replied with, "Open, it's Mom." I didn't think anything of it since it was her exact same voice. I heard it clearly. I left the door to our house open and went back to my sofa. While I was waiting for her, at least 5 minutes had passed, but no one came. I thought it was weird and I called her, but she didn't answer. I got tired and decided to take my nap. When I woke up around an hour later, with the door still open by the way, I went to check and there was nobody in the house. So a couple of hours later, she comes back from work and I asked for an explanation. She said that by the time I had heard the intercom at 4 p.m., she was still at work. I explained what had happened and she was as shocked as me. She then later told me that she had received a SMS from our local post office saying that the mailman had come by our house, but no one answered. So he thought there was nobody in and left. At the same time, I had heard the intercom and actually answered. I'm not sure if this was a glitch or what, but what do you think? Trees appearing out of nowhere. Something happened not long ago, and I need to write this down in case I forget, although I'm horribly disturbed by it. If there's a mundane reason for what happened, I hope it's not because of some kind of health concern, because, well, that would suck. There are 2 roundabouts, very close together, maybe 200 yards apart, if that, which I have to drive around during the school run. They are slightly hilly, grassy verge-style islands in the road, with nothing otherwise remotely interesting about them. Or at least there wasn't until today. I drove over them on the way up, as usual. I dropped my kid off at school, and on the way back, I noticed a copse of trees on the first roundabout. And I'm like, WTF? Like, they were properly obscuring the view around the island, and they weren't there when I was driving to the school. A bit shaken, wondering what was going on, I got to the other roundabout. Same story. A similar, yet slightly younger, copse of trees somewhat obscuring the view. I carried on past my exit, going back on myself to look at the other roundabout again, and I noticed that on the way to the school, the trees obscured the view towards my exit, and normally there's an entirely clear, unobstructed view of this. I'm now sitting in the car wondering what exactly the frosted flakes is going on. Disappearing Coca-Cola. Okay, I've been on the fence about sharing this because I'm still kind of new to this whole concept, but this story is why I joined this subreddit. When I was away at college, one night, I had Chinese food and half a bottle of Coke. I put the other half in my mini fridge in my bedroom. The next night, my 2 roommates and I went grocery shopping, and I came back with a brand new bottle. I then went to my bedroom and put the bottle away, taking out my leftovers and the half bottle of Coke. As I heat up my food in the kitchen, I went back to my room to put more things away, and when I returned to the dining room, the half bottle of Coke was gone. I thought maybe I got confused and put it away, so I checked my fridge, and it was just the brand new full bottle. My roommates were in the kitchen when I had brought my leftovers, and they remember the half Coke being there too. We were all really confused. I had them help me look in case I was missing something, and we started to feel crazy, and I started to think that they were pranking me. We were tearing apart our entire apartment because we just couldn't understand. Not in any cabinets, no garbage cans, nowhere. I started to spiral, and they assured me that it's probably somewhere so random and you'll find it when we move out in May. To this day, we've never found that bottle. They remember it, and we're still very close friends, and this was about 3 years ago, and I think about it constantly, and I've made them both swear up and down that they never touched the bottle. This seems like a silly story, but it irks me to my core, and I'm convinced that it was some kind of glitch. Baking powder. Okay, so even though it's probably not the biggest deal, I'm a bit spooked. Today, I just bought a thing of baking powder because the one that I bought not long ago disappeared. I remember that I was trying to use a recipe for baking, and it called for baking powder, and when I went to go get it out of my baking cabinet, it was nowhere to be found. I looked everywhere for it for about 2 months now, even in places that I knew for sure I didn't put it, but I looked anyway. So, fast forward to the present, I said screw it, and I bought another tin of it. I just now started to put all the non-refrigerated foods away, and I went to put the new baking powder away when, you guessed it, the old one literally is just sitting there, minding its own business as if it was never moved. Immediately, I was confused, and I got creeped out because, are you serious? I've been looking so long for the damn thing for it to just show up. Of course, I grabbed it to look at it, and then I went to compare the expiration dates. They did match, but if they did, I think I would have lost it. What's even more eerie to me is that it wasn't opened, when I'm sure that I've used it before. A random noise in a totally unconventional place. All Korean men are obliged to serve this country in the army for about 2 years. And when you're enlisted, you go to this facility where they train you to be a soldier for about a month. We don't have our cell phones with us. I'm ruling out a possible option later to be explained. So there's nothing more than talking to other guys to do, really. So it was after a running session where you put on your helmets and buckles while holding a gun, and you get back to your designated room with 15 other guys. It was dark. About 8 p.m., we were all exhausted and decided to take a sneaky shower even though we weren't supposed to. I was the first to do so, and me and another friend I made on the training process was there with me. I'm pretty sure I was the only one there because that friend went to fetch some water in his bottle. I lied down on the bed and looked at the window, wondering when all this crap would end. All of a sudden, I hear this weird meow sound. But this meow was so damn low, it was as if a tenor sang it. It was like a grown-ass man speaking it right into my ear. I turned my head to the right in a complete panic to see if my friend was just playing games on me. But when I looked back at the door, my friend was just coming back. Even though I said that I lied down on the bed, it isn't actually a bed. It's just a flat floor where you sleep right next to each other. The windows are closed. There shouldn't be any cell phones in this place. And even if you think someone would have snuck one in, all of our lockers were completely empty as we were moving rooms a little while later. Not like anyone would use this weird-ass sound as a ringtone either. No one was in the room except for me. Now this had me terrified for a few days after. We all had night shifts, so it made it much more worse. The good thing is that the training was so hard that it made you forget that this ever happened while during training. But sometime after it still makes me wonder what the heck that was. Missing phone at the beach glitch in the Matrix. One time, I lost my phone at the beach. My husband and I were looking for it for a long time, and he was calling me, but it made no sound. So I figured my toddler actually accidentally buried it in the sand or threw it in the ocean. This group of people next to us had metal detectors, and I didn't want to leave without my phone, so I asked them if they could please help me find my phone with their metal detectors. They sent over the spot where we were sitting multiple times and couldn't find anything. All we had was a beach wagon, and I took everything out of it and put everything back into it while I was looking for the phone. Once everyone was tired and we all gave up, I just said thank you for helping me look for my phone. It's okay. I said maybe the universe doesn't want me to find it, and then we said bye, and I felt peace about it and grateful that strangers were so nice and helpful even if I didn't find my phone. So I go to the spot where we were to lay down on the beach and relax, and my phone is sitting right on top of a folded towel. My jaw is on the floor because I just took everything out of the wagon and put it all back in, and I didn't see the phone at all. So it felt like it just appeared there in plain sight while we were looking thoroughly for it. But as soon as we stopped looking, it just appeared there. Our mailroom at work may be an interdimensional portal. The names are faked, but the story is true. No one was under the effects of any mind-altering substances, and everyone in the story is at least 27 or older. Also, it's a repost because they don't allow multiple glitches in one post. Makes me sad. I work at a medical facility as a paper pusher. This facility has 3 sites spread across a city. I'll call them Herb Street, Derp Street, and Gerp Road, although Gerp Road doesn't really feature in this story. As such, we use inter-office mail to get important documents to other locations, especially if a patient, say, drops a document on Herb Street, but their provider is located on Gerp Road. All documents are routed to the mailroom facility on Herb Street, and normal processing time for documents to get to where they need to go is anywhere from 1 to 5 business days. So, a patient walked into Herb Street on 10 September at 9:30 a.m. with a disability form from their provider, who's located at Derp Street. My fellow paper pusher, Allison, picked up the document from the front desk, put it into an interoffice envelope, emailed a copy to Maria at Derp Street, put it into the mailbox, and made a note in the patient's chart at 9:35 a.m. that the document was picked up, copy was emailed, and original was interofficed. The email copy is for insurance purposes, as very often documents get lost or just never turn up. At 10:45, Maria notes that she received the document and placed it in the provider's folder. Okay, maybe she just printed the emailed copy and gave it to the provider. No biggie. Today, 17 September, I receive an interoffice envelope addressed to Jennifer R., one of my providers that I paper push for, from Jennifer L. in the scheduling department. I open it up, and it's the original of the disability form with a sticky note that says, "I don't know why this was sent to me," in Jennifer L.'s handwriting. I check the front of the envelope and I'm confused. There's Allison's handwriting on the front, dated 10 September, and it's supposed to go to Maria to Derp Street. Just below it is Jennifer L.'s handwriting using the same envelope to send something to someone else in Herb Street, also on 10 September. Then on 12 September is Jennifer L.'s handwriting again, sending the envelope to Jennifer R. at Herb Street, the same envelope that ends up at my desk. Big deal, right? People reuse envelopes all the time. What's the glitch? Remember the whole 1 to 5 day business turnaround I mentioned? It really does take that long because all the documents go into several bins to be sorted. One big bin for all locations and several smaller bins for each individual location. It's not very likely the envelope could have fallen out of a bin and they reused it the same day without realizing it wasn't empty. All lines on the envelope are crossed off as they're used, and Allison's handwriting was the latest on the envelope at the time that it would have been used by Jennifer L. It would have been difficult to miss that this envelope contained something as it was tied shut, too. I checked with Maria if she still needed the disability form, and she stated that she didn't. The form was filled out by the provider, and the patient just needed to pick it up. She showed me a picture of the document she received. The patient used blue ink on my form to write their name, and he has distinctive handwriting. On Maria's form, the patient had used black ink to write his information in, but they all freaking matched. Down to the swoop of the T's and the way he drew his R's. Same slant to the letters too. Same date on the form. The only way it could have been this exact was if it was photocopied or traced. I asked Maria, and she did not print the form. She said she received the form and put the empty envelope into a bucket for the next time someone needed to interoffice something, and then handed the form to her provider. So, how could a form that takes 1 to 5 business days be teleported across the city in 1 hour? How could an empty envelope that Maria confirmed was empty and in a bin near her desk suddenly have a form inside of it, with the handwriting of someone who is halfway across the city, sending something to someone else halfway across the city, and spend 1 week in limbo before making its way to me? Chiropractor? I'm changing the name of the office and the name of the route in this story, but everything else is the truth. I'm a nurse, I work overnights, and lately I've been suffering from increased back and neck pain. I've never Googled the pain or chiropractor, but I am a patient at a practice that I've been with intermittently for over 15 years. I've not been to the practice in, I believe, over 5 years. 2 days ago, on September 9th, I got what appeared to be an automated text from my chiropractor asking me to make an appointment with them as they hadn't seen me in a while. I thought this was a very convenient coincidence, but it did strike me as odd because my chiropractor is very successful and busy and usually has a month-long wait time. The text message that I had received addressed me by my name, and I have a somewhat unique name. I asked them if they had anything available tomorrow, September 11th, and they responded with 3 appointment times, and I selected the one at 3 p.m. They said, "Okay, we'll see you at 3. September 11 comes, and I wake up for the day slightly early as I must have been subconsciously worried about being late to my appointment. My chiropractor is located on Route 153, and to get there, I have to head south on 153, and the chiropractor is located on the north side of Route 153. The name of the chiropractor office that texted me is 153 Chiropractic, which would make sense as that's where the office is located, on Route 153. Because I had to travel southbound to get to the office, I decided to punch in my office to the GPS to get me there as I wanted to see if there was an easier way to travel there. When I typed in the name 153 Chiropractic, no results in the area populated. I didn't think much of it. I knew how to get there, and I was just looking for a shortcut. On the way there, it starts to bother me that the office didn't populate on the GPS, so I decided to Google 153 Chiropractic. No results in my area for that name. But there is an office located in Kentucky by that name, and I'm in Massachusetts. I Googled 153 Chiropractic MA to see if anything else would come up. The chiropractor that I attended did populate, but under the name of North County Chiropractic. A little confused, I carried on into the office, and sure enough, it's called North County, but located on 153. I proceed into the office, I wait in line, and I speak to the receptionist to confirm that I do have an appointment. She recognizes me and says that it's been a while, but she knows for a fact that I don't have an appointment today. She checks, and sure enough, no appointment. I double-checked the text that I got. I had the correct date and time. I explained the situation to her, and she said, "You know, it's funny because we only have 2 patients with your first name, and the other one was just here yesterday at 3. She explains that it could have just been a glitch in their automated messaging system, confirms that they have the correct number for me, and makes a new appointment and sends me on my way. I get back to my car. I'm unfazed by the situation because I understand things happen. But I was confused by the chiropractor office from the text having a different name for the office. I look at the number that texted me, and it's a Kentucky-based number. I texted the number that had made me the appointment and asked where they were located, but I never got a response. I called the number, and it was an instant automated voicemail. I Google the name of the chiropractor and I find their number, which is also Kentucky-based but just in a different county, and I call them to warn them that I may have made an appointment with them that I was not going to be at. The number goes to their voicemail, which was an average-sounding voicemail for a chiropractor's office, but no one answers. The office never attempted to call me to say I missed the appointment or ask to reschedule. I've never been to Kentucky, never mind a small-town chiropractor office there. The text message they sent me used my name, and the other person with my same name had an appointment at my chiropractor the day before at the same time. I don't know. There's too many oddities in this situation to be explained other than a glitch in the Matrix. Do you have any ideas? Mountain glitch. I have an interesting story from a few years back. I was living in southern Washington and would often kayak on this lake where you had a very clear view of two large mountains. I had a favorite spot that I liked to kayak out to where I'd sit and just enjoy the view. I had a weird experience on the lake one day where it got extremely cloudy and very windy suddenly. The lake became very choppy, and I paddled in one spot for almost an hour, trying desperately to get to shore, but I couldn't get my kayak to move. Although it appeared that I was moving through the water, based on the point of reference of the shore, I wasn't moving. This aside, most other days out there were normal and relaxed. One day, I went to the lake to kayak, but I went to a different parking lot/access point than I was used to. But I intentionally paddled over to my favorite spot. As I was approaching my spot, I noticed that you very clearly could not see the two very large mountains as usual. I thought maybe I was too far away and the mountains were under the horizon or something. But as I reached my spot, the mountains were nowhere in sight. I had many very clear landmarks that told me I knew that I was looking in the right direction. The mountains are very close to this lake, and before you guys say it, visibility was perfect. There were no clouds. The mountains just simply weren't there. Running back, on the day where it became very cloudy and windy that I mentioned before, you could still see the mountains. It was the eeriest thing. It's as if the mountains grew legs and just walked away. I had two other friends with me who frequented this lake with me, who confirmed the entire story and also couldn't explain it. To this day, I'm sure that I entered a parallel universe or that lake was just some kind of earth vortex. Anyone else ever experience anything similar? Did I shift timelines, or am I losing my mind? I'm new to this subreddit, and I don't really know much about these things, but I can't help but feel uneasy about all of this. For the type of work that I do, I have to write newsletters giving updates on my work to supporters back in my home country. I have a folder on my PC where I just reuse my old template every time and generally label them according to the season. I then save a PDF version and email that out to a big group of people. Last night, however, I started writing autumn, and as I opened the last one to save it under a new name, I realized that summer was just a copy of spring, with the name changed in the left corner of the first page, and no other changes. Weird. Especially because we get a lot of power cuts and my PC often crashes, so I save every other minute out of habit whenever I work on my computer. I remember writing my last letter, summer, in clear details. Like the pictures I used, the feedback on the training that I had in Singapore, my friend moving away after her graduation that was very hard for me, even emailing the letter and getting responses from people encouraging me. I even did a deep search on my PC and I couldn't find the completed document, nor its saved PDF version, and no email trace either. No one knows what I'm talking about. I feel like I'm losing my mind. How does this even happen? What's going on? Saw 2 different versions of the same guy in a row. Not sure if this fits. I just thought it was kind of weird/fun and wanted to share. So, I'm riding my bike home, which is just a straight road. I pass a guy who catches my attention. He's some older dude with short white hair and a small beard. I didn't pay attention to his clothing, but he had pretty noticeable Walkman headphones on and 2 white/cream colored medium-sized dogs on a leash. He caught my attention because of the dogs and because he was smiling and had no teeth. Like smiling with an open mouth, but you couldn't see any teeth. And he was staring at me. I have a lot of tattoos. Many people stare at me. It's not super weird. So I ride past him in snail speed because it's uphill, and I didn't think much. Literally, less than 5 minutes later, I ride past the same damn guy. But this time with no beard and in-ear headphones and 2 dark brown/black medium-sized dogs. He again caught my attention because he smiled at me with an open mouth, toothless smile, long eye contact too, and his features were just identical. Like, my best explanation would really be that they were twins. I was completely baffled by not only him looking the same, but also having the bizarro versions of the dogs and the headphones with him. Super weird moment. I don't know. I still think about it, and I haven't seen him or them since. Somebody in the comments said, "A Walkman?" Birds flew into my room and suddenly appeared even though the window isn't broken. After lurking for a few months, I finally decided to share a rather bizarre experience that occurred to me when my husband and I first purchased our home 2 years ago. To give you some context, my office is located at the back of the house, facing the garden, and it has a door that leads directly outside. In most homes, you might expect to find a backyard door from the kitchen, but in our layout, you have to pass through the kitchen and into my office before reaching the garden. My workspace is directly in front of 2 windows and gets a lot of natural light. While I keep them closed, I do open the blinds to let in the sunlight. However, I never pull them up just for privacy. A little detail to keep in mind. I work from home while my husband heads into the office once a week. One afternoon, as I was working, I suddenly heard a rustling noise coming from the bottom of my blinds to the window on the left. And to my utter surprise, a bird the size of my fist was flapping around, completely startled and flinging itself against the blinds. Now, let me clarify. My window was shut tight. There was absolutely no way for this bird to have entered through the glass. Did it somehow slip through a wormhole? I immediately FaceTimed my husband to show him what was happening. He witnessed the chaos unfolding on his screen as I tried to keep myself together. Grabbing a broom to hopefully push out the bird, I lifted the blinds and opened the backyard door. The bird quickly spotted the exit and flew out into the garden. In hindsight, I wish I had taken a photo of this little visitor. However, at that moment, I was too shaken up, and I didn't want a reminder of such an unexpected fright. Once I had calmed down and caught my breath, I took a closer look at the blinds and window ledge. There were small feathers scattered from its frantic flapping. I wiped down everything with Clorox, wanting to ensure that any trace of our unexpected encounter was gone. Upon further inspection, I confirmed that there were no holes in either the window or the mesh. Even after stepping outside to check for any signs of damage, everything appeared intact. It remains a mystery how that little bird managed to make its way into my office without breaking in. This experience left me both bewildered and amused. I'm glad that I FaceTimed my husband at the time so it wasn't just me imagining anything. If anyone has any theories about how this could have happened or similar stories to share, I'd love to hear them. My old house. So this is more of a list of weird incidents that happened in my previous house. For reference, I live in Singapore, a SEA country, meaning Asian culture and beliefs are what the general populace allowed. Also, here in SG, most of us stay in government-built apartment housing. I say all this because when my parents bought the place long ago, we had a next-door neighbor whose job was being a Taoist medium. He had since moved out, but before, my parents had seen him performing rituals along the corridors with chickens, dogs, and occasionally random women dressed in black. My mom swore that she heard chains and screams from her room late at night, and my brother and I would often have to spend the night at my grandmother's if a ritual was taking place to prevent us from being too exposed to it. Anyway, like I mentioned, the guy moved out eventually and his daughter moved in. All around good-natured family, all things considered. Nothing weird from them and very friendly. But even after he left and the rituals stopped, my family would continually get disturbed by incidences that we couldn't really explain. I'll go chronologically. As an infant, I would apparently stare at the balcony lights when they were off and scream like no tomorrow. According to my parents, I would be inconsolable and pointing at the lights screaming. Perhaps a child's imagination, though? Who can tell? My brother and I would often hear a woman sobbing and weeping in the corridor that led to our toilet. It would always begin around 2 a.m., but we never had the balls to go check it out, and fell asleep eventually, so I can't tell you when it ended usually. Another thing, we would constantly see shadows gliding up the staircase into what would eventually be my room, and we'd stare at them without blinking until they disappeared. Their behavior never changed. Another incident was when I was 17. I had a friend over late working on a school project, and it was pretty quiet, other than our small comments to each other on what to change. All of a sudden, we heard a knock on the coffee table next to us, and someone, male, said loudly, "Hello? Excuse me?" My friend just stood up and said something similar to, "Well, it's late. Time for me to head back." And he did. I just booked it upstairs and dove into bed. My brother was alone one day in the house and he decided to have a shower. While bathing, he heard my mom calling for him from downstairs. It went something like this. "Hey, can you come down and help me?" He says, "I'm in the shower." Mom says, "It's really heavy. Just quickly come and take it." He goes, Okay. So he towels himself quickly and runs down, only to see that my mom and my aunt just turning into the driveway. I clarified with him afterwards that no, she did not in fact say anything or come home for that matter until just then. Another thing, we would often hear footsteps running in the apartment above us, starting from as early as 9 p.m. until late into the night. They were most definitely bare feet, but light enough that you could still mistake them for children playing. The closest way I can describe it is that the kids were doing their shuttle run practice, and we could tell by the squeaks their feet made when they pivoted around. I once played Christian hymns when I heard it, in an attempt to ward it off, but apparently the sounds seemed to escalate, becoming like there were 3 kids instead of 1 up there running around. My brother, who worked as a real estate agent after we grew up, went to the house above under the guise of checking if they wanted their house sold. No one was in, so he checked with some of his colleagues, and apparently one of them actually was actively trying to get it sold already. The owner's mom was supposed to live in that house, but due to mental issues was already staying in a mental hospital for a long period of time. And no, she did not have any young kids in the house, and no, she did not do any vigorous exercises due to her age. That's all I can think of at this point. Maybe I'll add more in another post if I can remember them. Cheers. Board game reappears. My boyfriend and I were looking for a game that we always play. It's called Roll for the Galaxy. We have all of our board games on shelves in the basement, and we were looking for that particular game. It wasn't there. We both looked on the shelves multiple times, and we looked down there separately, and both on multiple occasions and different days. We just couldn't find it. We assumed that maybe he lent it to one of his friends. It came up in conversation from time to time, with us just being a little bit sad that it was gone. It actually became a thing with us, talking about where it went. He ended up even texting a bunch of friends to see if they had it. Side note, on the shelves, it was clear that we had the game Race for the Galaxy, but not Roll for the Galaxy, the one that we enjoy a lot more. So, one day, I was down in the basement, checking our freezer to see what we had since we were having guests over, and I had been reading this subreddit a bunch, so I thought to myself, you know what? I bet if I check the shelves, the game will be there. I checked, and it was. I called my boyfriend immediately to come and look, and he's a super rational person, but he couldn't believe it. He was freaked out. I have a picture to show how easily it's spotted on the shelves, and there's no way that we both could have missed it after pouring through the games one by one. I can post a pic in the comments to show how easily viewable it is. It's a bit spooky, and honestly, I keep on thinking that it might disappear. Whenever I go down to the basement, I do a bit of an eyeball check to make sure it's still there. Again, I just don't see how we could have missed it at all. I swear, it was not there before.